Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Soulful Hunter podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mack. Through this podcast, I'm on a mission to transform lives through primal adventure and to spread my mission of mentorship as conservation. This podcast is powered by Washington Backcountry, a resource for all hunters both new and old. To find out more about Washington Backcountry, go to wabackcountry.com or search for Washington Backcountry on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. The Soulful Hunter podcast is also proudly presented by T&K Hunting Gear. If you haven't heard about T&K, then it's about time you do. I've been using T&K gear out in the field and on hunts and have fallen in love with their stuff. T&K is veteran-owned and 100% made in America using only American-made products. All their gear is covered under a lifetime warranty with no questions asked. If it breaks or fails, they will fix it or replace it for free. T&K is your resource for bino harnesses, bow slings, and a lot more amazing gear. For more information about T&K Hunting Gear, go to tnkhunting.com or search for them on Facebook and Instagram. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Freedom on and stay soulful. The Soulful Hunter podcast is also proudly presented by the Crazy Elk Company. Based out of the state of Washington with products made in America, they are providing solutions with gear to problems you didn't even know you had. Their tag wallet is one of those solutions, and I had the pleasure of using it on all of my hunts this last year, and it is now a mainstay in my kill kit. The tag wallet is a water-resistant zippered pouch that comes with its own reusable zip ties to safely and securely store your notch tag for quick and easy access. For more information, go to crazyelkcompany.com and use the code SOULFUL with a capital S to save 20% at checkout. Be blessed, everyone, and as always, stay soulful. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Chapter 2 of the Soulful Series. We are talking all about rest and recovery today and how it has an effect on not only your body and your mind, but also on your soul. Because at the end of the day, if we do not take time to recharge our own soul, our own spirit, our own body, then once again, we are not showing up in the world to give the way that we know that we can. And so I always talk about you got to make sure you love yourself so that you can love the world. And you got to fill up your own cup before you can pour out into others. Otherwise, you're going to run yourself dry, and it's going to lead to a whole other series of events. So, Tim, what's up, my man? How you doing?
Hey. Doing good, man. Super good to be back and ready for this topic. This is a good topic. May seem a little counterintuitive, right? To rest and recover, to really nourish our soul, or to kind of really affect our day, but really it does. And we hear out there in the world today that it's like about the grind, the hustle, and about just go. Yet, gosh, man, so much of that really just is deteriorating our soul. And just to kick these things off, man, it's like really, I look at it this way: if we're doing that kind of lifestyle, if we're living, and we're all guilty of it, I've been guilty of it as well. It's like living, sun up to sundown, burning the candle on both ends and in the middle. It's like if we lived or used our finances in that way, and didn't budget well, how would our financial state look like? It looked terrible. And so, as well as living beyond our means, if we lived beyond our means financially, we're going to be in a world of hurt. But it's really goes beyond that, and it's living beyond our means physically, and the results are devastating. With accidents or issues with the sleep, or we blow up on someone because we're lacking sleep, and really it's just impacting our soul in a very negative way as well.
I totally agree. And I can tell you from personal experience, and I'm sure my children could tell you from personal experience, that when dad or mom is not getting the appropriate amount of sleep, I hate to say this, that I'm not perfect and I make mistakes as a parent and as a human being, and I don't parent the best, and I'm not as loving when I am short on my end as well. And it all has to do with rest and recovery. And so often, so I teach health through in school, and I talk about the 6 aspects of health and wellness and how your body, your life is a representation of a wheel, and a wheel that cruises down the road of life. And the road has its twists and turns, its potholes, its bumps, its different dynamics to it. Well, the spokes to our wheel that keep our wheel solid and rolling smoothly down the road of life has 6 spokes, and those spokes are a spiritual aspect, a physical
Mhm.
aspect, an intellectual aspect, emotional aspect, a social aspect, and also a vocational aspect. And one of the things is that so often people are like so concerned about one dynamic, one aspect when it comes to rest and recovery, or when it comes to just their attitude on life. They're like, well, I eat well, I exercise, I'm good to go. Well, there's so much more that goes into that,
Mm.
into
Yeah.
making us a full mind, body, soul, spirit, and heart human being in this world that has gifts to share with the world. And for us to be able to share our gifts fully and uninhibited, we need to make sure that we take care of ourselves. And it doesn't mean just physical exercise, eating right, flossing your teeth. A lot of people get caught up on the physical side of it. Well, this is a soulful series, and there's so much more that goes into rejuvenating our own soul and making sure that we're right in our head before we step out of our bed, or where we step out of our bedroom or house or whatever, and get going about our day.
Yeah, man. And it's funny because one of the things that I talk a lot about is slowing down to speed up. And in coaching, when we're coaching, we slow the conversation down to gain insight. And once insight has occurred, now the individual can go do more and be more effective because of the insight that's been had. Same is true in what we're talking about here, is this slowing down process to be able to speed up and be more efficient through the day. It's funny because it's very counterintuitive, again, like to the nature of our culture today. But there was a reason why, like, you know the one of the primary activities, which is really an inactivity, that restores us. And it's an activity that we do, but it's really an inactivity. It's sleeping. And sleep is one of the biggest ways of restoring our soul. And it's 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 no wonder, I think, that God had designed it, for us to spend nearly a third of our lives sleeping. And it's a sobering thought that we are, to be inactive so that we can be more active. There's an interesting balance there. And it's funny because if you look at studies, and there's been studies that have been done on sleep, and sleep is, back in the 1850s, was actually, I think the average was 9.5 hours of sleep the human got. 100 years later, 1850, it was, or excuse me, 1950, it was down to 8 hours. The study found that humans are really operate well at about 8 hours of sleep, and here we are, not even, what, 70 years later, and most people get less than 7 hours
Right.
of sleep. And so it's really impacting us in a big way. And you mentioned the body, the soul and the spirit, and how it's not just our, the human person is not just merely a soul housed in a body. Our bodies, and souls are actually unified. So if our bodies suffer, so do our souls. And lack of sleep, lack of rest, really weighs down the body and tears down the body. And so we cannot neglect the body in pursuit of spiritual growth. We cannot neglect the soul in pursuit of spiritual growth as well.
Yeah, or even physical growth. And the
Yeah.
the beautiful thing is about this is just like a rope. A rope is
Mm.
only as strong as it is because it's intertwined and woven with multiple strands, right? You have one
Yeah.
strand that if your life is supported by one strand, the minute that one strand breaks down, you're falling. You're
Mm,
toast. But a rope is and a good rope is made up of multiple strands. And
yeah.
the fact that they intertwine and twirl and twist and all this so that when we are lacking in one specific area, our other strands can kind of pick up the slack
That's
for us
good.
and support
Yeah.
us. And so when we're talking about, we need to make sure we get sleep, well, yes. And we need to make sure that we take time to clear our mind. And
Mm,
some people, I like to call it me time. So, me time is time in which we are dedicating to ourselves to center our thoughts, center our emotions, take a deep breath in and let go of the cares of the world. Anxiety and stress is just taking over society. And it happened to me last night where, I ended up losing an hour and a half of sleep because I ended up getting lost in the rabbit hole of a cell phone and social media and different things. And all of a sudden, I'm like, where is the benefit for what I'm doing at that moment in my
mm,
life? Because I know sleep is going to benefit me way more. And I know that me browsing into the dark hours of the evening isn't beneficial for me. I could have spent that time walking on my treadmill while I'm doing that, or I could have been reading and gaining more knowledge and insight.
yeah.
Instead, I was wasting time. And so, connecting with the me time is very important and it needs to not interfere with other aspects of your life.
Mm,
The minute that that interferes with the other aspects is the minute that we once again are putting ourselves in unhealthy situations. Now, Tim, before you jump in here, I just want to address one thing which a lot of people might not know, but a lot of studies being done into where the soul actually resides in. A lot of people say that the soul resides within the pituitary gland of the brain. And with what you were saying about sleep, is if we do not give our body a chance to rest and come to a status of calmness, of serenity, of peace, then it's like the water of an ocean or a lake. You love looking out on a lake when it's nice and glass
oh
and
yeah.
smooth, like that's appealing, right? We look at that and we're
Hmm.
drawn to it. We're not really drawn to go out onto the water when it's all stormy and waves and all of this.
That's good.
And if you take that visual and apply it to you and your soul and your life, if you do not take time to calm the waters of your soul, then
Mm,
you're also not going to be in an environment that is welcoming to other people as well.
yeah. No, that is good, man. And that is so true. Man, I love me some good water time out on the lake, where it's really nice and calm. But crap, man, when it's choppy out there, you're sick to, I'm sick, at least me, I'm sick to my stomach. I'm like, ugh, this is, this is no fun at all. Let's get off of this water right now. So I love that. It's like inside internally when we're choppy, when we're restless, when we're constantly on the go. You think about that as our soul is just not still, not you know not in a good place. And man, that takes discipline though, right? I mean, it takes a lot of, it's really that kind of perfect combination of discipline and grace. You think about it as sleep, we can't force ourselves to go to sleep. We can't force ourselves to get restful rest. We can force ourselves to sit down and take a break sometimes, but we can't really force ourselves to get that restful rest that our body needs, or that our soul needs, really, or that our spirit may even need. And so it's really something that it's a surrender, and we have to get to a place to where we just surrender ourselves to really this wonderful thing that God has made in the body. And I think what you were hitting on, which was very interesting, because some of the studies that I've done on sleep is that, which by the way, you're scrolling. We'll talk about that one in a moment. When we get to the tips of some things that we can do to help us, that might be one that gets xed out at nighttime, the scrolling. But where I was going with that is that some of the studies that have been done is that when the body goes to sleep and goes into a restful state, there is a washing of there's like this chemical that washes over the brain that actually washes the brain clear of toxins, clear of everything else. And so that's why the body needs the rest. That's why the brain needs rest. And so, the brain fog and all those other things, kind of just get washed away. And it's really a surrendering process of just surrendering and creating that discipline in our day to find rest or to find moments of sleep. So I like how you talked about the brain there because I kind of geek out there a little
I love it.
bit.
Well, it's so interesting where people, and I'm guilty of it as well, is we're so quick to take things at face value,
Mhm,
and we make judgment decisions and snap decisions just like at the drop of a hat. Yes or no, and we base our life off of these decisions. And if we're not straight in the head, we're not straight in the mind, we're not straight in the soul, we're not in alignment, then there's consequences to every action, right? A consequence is neither
mhm,
positive nor negative, it's a result of. And so this series is dedicated to you being a growing as an individual. The Soulful series is about growing as an individual to make yourself a better person, not only in your society and community and whatever. It is, listen, either we are getting better in what we're doing or we are getting worse. And so if we're not, and talking about the scrolling of the cell phone, that didn't make me better. That therefore actually made me worse because it stole from me the sleep that I needed, the time that I needed to rest, and it negatively impacted me to here I am today where I'm a little slow, a little groggy, maybe my patience is thin, all of that because of the choices that we make. And
mhm,
and that is something that we need to keep in the forefront of our mind. Every action has an equal to opposite reaction. So every word has an equal and opposite reaction. Everything that we do and are and how we show up has reactions and consequences. What type of life do you want? What type of life do you want to live? What type of life do you want for your children, for your spouse, for the people you interact with? And it starts with making sure that we are grounded in a place where we are in alignment with ourself and our soul and our head and our physical body and being.
mm. Yeah, man, that's good. And it's really uh about the practices, right? Like last chapter we talked about in chapter 1 we talked about gratitude, and it's about establishing the practices of gratitude. And so I'm curious how many listeners actually practiced that this last week, right? Of finding something to be grateful for, even if it's just the one thing in the day, or listing out those things that are always catching us that we're like disgruntled about. Dude, I caught myself this last week, um, and shared it with my wife, and so she was like, "Yeah, I noticed that you're not saying X, Y, Z anymore." And I'm like, yeah, and so it's like, what can I get back to? So it's like doing the practices. It's this practice of doing it. And so I think the same is true for here, the practice that we can focus on is sleep, having better sleep. How do we get better sleep? And there are some things. I don't know if you're ready to dive into that right now, or
Dude, let's get after it.
yeah. So the discipline of sleep is really practice, man. I got to a place where I had a coach challenge me to get 8 hours of sleep a night. And I was like, dude, I can't, I'm it's 6 hours and I'm up. And he challenged me to get eight. And so I started studying sleep. I started studying like what do I need to do? What thing, and here's the thing, you can train the body to do a bunch of different things, right? Just like you can train it in muscle memory and all these other things. So now I get a pretty full 8 hours of sleep. Sometimes it's 7.5, but it's right there. And so there's several things, man, that I think we need to be aware of. And number one was the thing of blue light, like what you were talking about on the phone, from our TVs and from our devices with the blue lights that they emit. It actually keeps the brain up, even though you have fallen asleep. If you're reading your phone or your TV, it keeps our brains lit up, awake, almost like it, because the blue light emits like a noonday sun type of ray, and so our brains think it's noonday. So it takes 2 to 3 hours or longer for our brains to actually wind down once we're quote unquote asleep. And so that's a long time. And so I think one of the big practices we can do is try to disengage from our TVs, disengage from our devices at least 60 minutes, if not 90 minutes before. And you even mentioned it, reading a book, right? Reading something, if you're having a hard time falling asleep, you can't force yourself. So read something, put some light music on, maybe find some time to meditate on something that, maybe it's a scripture or maybe it's just a good practice that you like to do, but find something. But go to bed at a consistent time. That's what's helped me big time, was going to bed at a certain time. And these devices are awesome at setting your time, that it's time to go to bed, and then it blocks all signals out. I put my phone on do not disturb, so it's not sending out omitting little signals as it's and sending me notifications throughout the night and waking my body up, or my brain up, really is what it's doing. It wakes my brain up because I'm still physically asleep, but the brain still knows that when stuff like that happens. And so putting your phone on, do not disturb, going to bed at their exact right time or same consistent time, and getting up at the consistent time every single day really helps that. And then the other is, this is something that I've had to do, man. I don't know if you've ever laid there and wondered what time it was, and then you look at your phone, you're like, "Oh my gosh, I've got another 3 hours, 5 hours to sleep." Right? Is laying there and not looking at your phone, and just lay there, just allow it to be. Don't get up, unless you got to pee. Don't wet the bed, but it's like lay there and just allow yourself to naturally go back to sleep. Those are some good practices, man, that we can do to just get better sleep and feel more rested and relaxed throughout
Yeah.
our day.
Yeah, I want to jump in here real quick because
Yeah,
I want to share my experiences in which I have personally found that there are moments in my life where I have a tough time sleeping. I have a tough time falling asleep. My mind is nonstop active, whether it is thinking of ideas and coming up with creative ways to do things, or I'm thinking about things I have to
the next
do or
hunt.
I want to do, or yeah, like all this different stuff. Like, I lay in bed and my mind just like goes and goes and goes. And two things. Number one, I know as a young child and a school age kid, I grew up and I was forced to read a certain number of pages of a book, and then you have to do all this. And I remember sitting and reading, and every time I read, I'd just fall asleep. And I'd never accomplish as many pages of reading that I needed to do. One, because what I was reading was extremely boring. Two, is is the way your head is positioned, typically when you're sitting upright, when with your chin down looking at a book, you're not getting as much oxygen, therefore you're cutting it off to your brain, the blood's flowing a little slower, and you get sleepy. So that's one thing I want to suggest, is like people actually grab a book and start reading. I personally don't like reading in bed because I don't like having a hot, warm bed to get into. I like it nice and cold
Yeah,
and crisp. So don't read in bed, and then when you feel yourself starting to doze off,
it's good.
then head over. Uh, and actually, I guess I have three things. Number two is there's this really cool app, and I'm totally throwing an advertisement out here right here because I got to be a part of it, and it's Carbon Unwind. It's an app that you can download to your phone that has guided meditations, it has sleep readings, stuff that is meant to actually put you to sleep. And it shuts off after a certain amount of time. The reason why I'm saying that is because I actually got to be, you can fall asleep to the voice of Johnny Mack, the Soulful Hunter, on that because I do one of the
That's
readings
funny.
on that app. But that is an avenue. But the other thing, and really the one that I really wanted to hit on, is you. And when I say you, the listener, you, the royal you, all of us,
Mm,
I believe that it's time for us to take control of our mind.
yeah.
And so when we're laying in bed and we're trying to work on, we're trying, we're that's a word that I like to remove from my,
Mm,
vocabulary, because there is no try. There's either do or do not, right? So either you're
mhm,
going to fall asleep or you're not going to fall asleep. So trying to fall asleep is just another thing that keeps you awake.
mhm,
Going back to taking control of our mind is that I have found success that when I have intention and setting the intention of wanting to go to sleep, wanting to sleep, that I can control my thoughts and say, okay, it is no longer time to think about these things. It is time to focus on rest and recovery and allow my body to take a deep breath in, whether it's
mm,
an
yeah.
actual deep breath or it is I'm drawing a blank right now, like a
Metaphoric.
metaphorical. Thank you, Tim. A metaphorical deep
Mhm,
breath, but to take control of your mind and your thoughts, and don't let your thoughts drive you, and don't let your thoughts drive you crazy. There's so often that we have this conversation in our heads, like, oh, like the angel and the demon on the shoulders. Well, if those people are in our head and we're constantly talking to ourselves and having all these thoughts run around, who's in control of you?
yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
it's time to take control of your own mind, which then helps you take control of your own life, and then the ripple effect continues and life is better. So, Tim, do you want to speak
I
to that at all?
Yeah, I love that, and it is about taking control. And part of the studies that I've done with sleep, and some of the books that I've read is, and it is really about taking control of your environment. And I love the fact that you talked about not reading in bed, finding some other place to read, because one of the things they talk about is your bedroom being a sleep sanctuary. And if we're married, it's a sanctuary for other things as well. So, but
Brown
it's for
chicken, brown
sleep.
cow.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. But it is really set for us to get the best sleep possible. So eliminating any kind of light omission in the room, getting blackout curtains, setting the temperature to below 68 or right at 68 degrees or less, so it's really setting your environment, taking control of those things. And I think once we start to take action and set intention on those things, we're preparing our thoughts, we're preparing ourselves for sleep, and we know that, our bodies know that. And and one other thing is oh crap, it just it was right there and then it just went away. um but it is just how, what was it, oh crap. It's all good, but really just setting intention for that. I love that. And it's like taking control over that in our lives is key. So
Absolutely. I do.
sorry, I had something else and
No,
it
maybe I
just
can spark it here with what I'm about to say is one of the things that people like confuse, or even, I don't know if confuse is the right term, Eastern religion and Western Christianity. And we're not even talking religion on this podcast, but there's this interesting mix yet divide where people don't know where to
mm,
stand, or if the
yeah.
things are appropriate, or if they're going to be judged or whatever. Your body is created in the image of God. You were made with a specific design, and you are made in love. So the minute that you acknowledge who you are and how you were made is the minute that you also get to take control of who you are in your life. And one of the things that I was really freaked out about in my younger years is this concept of breathing, like breathing techniques. And I'm like, oh, that sounds really
Hmm.
woo woo ish, like woo. But at the end of the day, we breathe. We breathe all the time. So to be conscious of our breathing is something that is a way for us to center and focus and also clear our mind. Going back to the sleep thing, you always hear about people counting sheep. We'll count sheep to go to sleep. Well, how about you lay in bed, you close your eyes, you tell yourself in your mind, I am not going to be thinking about anything else,
Yeah.
and you focus on your breathing. And you take a deep breath in, take a deep breath out,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Come
you
on.
concentrate on that. And I guarantee that whether it's sleep or some other things that you're trying to focus on or get clarity on, the minute that you allow oxygen to get into your body, the minute that you are focusing on the intention of what you're doing, you're going to have like
Yes.
exponential benefits from it.
Yes, yes, and you couldn't see me jump and my arms go. I'm like, yes, he just reminded me of what I was just came back to me. So, so basically, what my thought was just that. It is that breathe. I love the breath, doing breath work, and you're right. It gets kind of skewed and blah blah blah, whatever. Like we freaking breathing is life. And one of the things I had pulled up here is it's inspire. I love the word inspire. Obviously, it's in my handles and everything else. Tim Douglas inspires, but inspire. There's a section of that where it actually talks about the divine breathed into, and um, sorry, I was just telling I called. I would get them back in just a moment. So anyway,
No
but it
worries.
is divine breathed into, right? It is a breath divinely breathed into us, and so I love that. And then uh, Genesis, it actually talks about how God breathed into our lungs, breathed, created us from the dust, breathed into us, and now we are a soul, right? And so I think obviously there's we can say like breathing is not woo woo. It's a in my world, it's a God thing, right? God breathed his breath into us and we became alive. And so it's just, there is a lot of breath, like using breath work is powerful, man. Using it to calm ourselves there
Yes.
throughout the day,
Yeah.
to get that restfulness in the moment, to calm ourselves at night, to get the rest and the sleep that we need.
Yeah,
So,
so I love this. So we're gonna wrap this up here in just a moment,
yep.
but I wanna talk about this real quick because this is very important, and I want to connect the dots for people, and also for myself. When you breathe, breathing brings life. When you focus on breathing, you're focusing on life. The opposite of life is death. And so if
Mm,
you are not focusing on life, then you are
that's
focusing on
good.
death, and therefore our thoughts become our reality, and everything
Mm,
has a ripple effect going outward from our inner mind to our physical existence in this world. So
mm,
when it comes to uh, breathing, know that I had an issue of holding my breath. I didn't realize this, but for the longest time, even all the way up into my 20s and maybe almost in my early 30s, I'd find myself in places or stressful moments or whatever it may be of holding my breath. And
mm.
it was, I don't know, maybe a way that I dealt with things or anxiety or stressful moments. But the problem is that when you hold your breath, what are you not allowing to come in?
Yeah,
Life. You're not
yeah.
allowing that life to come in and fill you up with the goodness that it has for you. So
So good.
that's going to be it for me. Tim, do you got any closing remarks that we have?
No, man, that is so good. I mean, just the things that you were just talking about is in the definition of inspire, and that is to infuse something such as life by breathing. And so I love that, man. And it's been a great conversation.
I love it.
Great conversation.
Listeners, I hope you guys have really enjoyed this. Just a reminder that if you are looking for some personal one on one coaching, you can reach out to Tim, and he is totally willing to journey with you and support you
Yes.
in all avenues of life. I hope you guys really enjoyed this episode. We got a lot more chapters coming up. Our next chapter that we're going to be delivering to you is all about margin and slowing down, which is going to be a great build off of our rest and recovery. Hope you guys have
Yes.
enjoyed this series so far. Be blessed, everyone. Freedom on. And as always, stay soulful.
Stay soulful.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, I'd love it if you could go ahead and give this a rating as well as subscribe. Also, you can check us out on Instagram under the Soulful Hunter Podcast. Make sure to tag us in pictures and posts and use the hashtag Soulful Hunter. To find out more about the Soulful Hunter Podcast, go to soulfulhunter.com and be sure to follow the podcast as we are going to be bringing you a lot of great information, insight, and changing lives through primal adventure. I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. Stay tuned and stay soulful.